Tatsuya, an ugly failed magician, starts going to an elite magic school along with his sister who has a brother complex. From his first day at school, Tatsuya is mocked by others for being a weakling until he shows off his god powers and scores all the popular girls at school. However, before any of this, Miyuki, who is still a Karen, is flying first class with his mother while Tatsuya is forced to fly in economy class. Eventually, they land at the Okinawa airport, and at that time, Miyuki hates Tatsuya and her mother advises her to look at Tatsuya as nothing but a lowly servant. Eventually, the three of them arrive at their beach house where Hanami greets them, and after settling in, Miyuki decides to take a look outside. Her mother asks her to take Tatsuya along. As they walked, Miyuki couldn't stop thinking about how much she disliked her older brother and wished he wasn't her guardian. Suddenly, she runs into a bunch of muscled-head Navy men who begin mocking her for chickening out after seeing their buffed arms. Tatsuya steps up and tells them to leave or their shiny heads will be full of wounds. This pisses one of them and he punches Tatsuya, only for him to easily block it. This results in the two of them preparing to fight, but only one of Tatsuya's punches to his guts is enough to bring the gym rat down to the ground. Tatsuya uses this chance to take Miyuki back while she is stunned by the fact that Tatsuya is this strong. After reaching home, Miyuki explains the situation to everyone and her mother advises Tatsuya to be aware of his place and keep up the good work. At night, Hanami informs Miyuki that her mother has caught a fever and she will have to go to a party hosted by the head of the Kuroba family. After Miyuki leaves, Hanami thinks about how Tatsuya and Miyuki should be like normal siblings and there's no reason for him to be a guardian. Eventually, they arrive at the party and Miyuki leaves with the host while Tatsuya stands by the door. She meets up with Ayako and Fumiya of the Kuroba family, who are more interested in meeting Tatsuya than a makeup machine like her.
Emotional damage!
Miyuki notices him smile while talking to them, making her frustrated as he has never smiled in front of her. While listening and noticing their conversation, Miyuki concludes that Tatsuya only sees her as someone he needs to protect and doesn't harbor any feelings and decides that she should do the same. The next day, all four of them are on a boat taking pictures when they are told about a submarine-like thing following them. The submarine launches missiles and Tatsuya uses his abilities to tear them into pieces, shocking Miyuki about the fact that he did all that without using a CAD. At night, the Navy officer visits their beach house and is informed about what happened. The officer then makes the muscle head apologize for his rude behavior and invites Tatsuya to visit their base. During lunch, their mother allows Tatsuya to visit the base and Miyuki decides to accompany him as well. With that being said, the two of them visit the Navy base and watch as the soldiers train. While they are fighting one-on-one, Tatsuya decides to take part and defeats one of them with a single punch to his stomach. Following that, Tatsuya manages to beat another one of the soldiers and eventually gets challenged by the egghead who he defeated the other day. During their fight, he starts using magic and Tatsuya replies by using one of his own magical abilities, knocking him down instantly. This results in him acknowledging Tatsuya's skills and developing a friendly relationship with him. The next day, an announcement is made in the media about a missile strike on the island and Tatsuya appears, saying that the Navy has recommended them to take shelter at their base. Simultaneously, their mother, Mia, receives a call from her sister, Maya, who advises her to take shelter in the Navy base and that she should remove the limiter on Tatsuya's powers. Eventually, they appear at the shelter and Tatsuya hears gunshots. Even though he wants to stay inside and take care of Miyuki, Mia forces him to go and take a look outside. There, he notices a bunch of personnel fighting. Meanwhile, a bunch of soldiers enter the room where Mia is present and ask them to follow, but Mia struggles to trust them. Just then, the Baldy appears and begins fighting these men. Hanami puts a shield in front of them, but the soldier's magic breaks it, causing pain to both her and Mia. The shiny top named Joseph is told by the attackers that they are treated like outsiders for not being magicians, and Joseph decides to stop fighting after hearing it. Miyuki uses this chance to use her magic and frees one of them. The other soldiers open fire at the three of them, but simultaneously, Tatsuya arrives and makes all of them disappear using his magic. He then turns up to Miyuki and uses his magic on her. Meanwhile, Miyuki is present in a world that seems to be destroyed and suddenly notices magic circles appear around her, treating all her wounds until she wakes up, finding herself in Tatsuya's arms. Following that, he treats Mia and Hanami wounds as well, and the Navy personnel apologize for the minor inconvenience.
What?
The officer then informs Tatsuya that one of the men present at the shelter is the CEO of the military's top clients and the attackers were looking to take him hostage. Furthermore, the attackers control most of the ocean near the island and might attack again. Tatsuya asks the officer to take his sister and mother to a safe location and lend him an armor suit and some weapons. He is pissed because they attacked Miyuki and plans to take revenge. As he walks away with the officers, Miyuki tries to stop Tatsuya, saying that there is no need for him to take such a risk, but Tatsuya is set on taking revenge and mentions that she is the only thing he holds dear to her, advising her to ask their mother to tell her the truth. Eventually, the terrorists arrive at the beach and Tatsuya manages to defeat them without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, Miyuki asks the drama queen about what Tatsuya told her earlier, and Miya replies that Tatsuya was born as a defective magician. Even though he has the regrowth skill, it is not considered magic. He was born as a defective in the Yotsuba clan, which is one of the most powerful families, but not being able to use magic was a disappointment. So, he was subjected to a surgery that gave a non-magician the ability to use magic, but it caused Tatsuya to lose all his emotion. She further tells Miyuki that the only emotion remaining within Tatsuya is his love for his sister. Hearing this makes Miyuki tear up and she can't comprehend how she can ever repay him. Suddenly, the Navy notices the arrival of more enemy battleships and Tatsuya aims his bolt-action sniper towards them, forming a rather big scope using his ability. Hanami requests Mary to let him see Tatsuya and she agrees, commenting that Tatsuya is planning to do such a thing that he has never tried before. At the battlefield, Tatsuya advises the other Navy officers to head back as they could be injured by his powers, but they decide to stay by his side and provide support. The two of them put up a shield in front of Tatsuya while he focuses on his magic. At the last moment, Hanami also appears and puts her own shield above Tatsuya. Eventually, Tatsuya fires a power known as a material burst that lands on the enemy fleet and causes a massive explosion, enough to completely obliterate all of them. But this power causes a tsunami and they all retreat. However, using all this strength makes Hanami feel lightheaded and she figures that she has reached the end of her life. Tatsuya tries to save her, but Hanami tells him that she never had free will her entire life, but now she has the chance to choose the time of her own demise and requests him to let her pass away. With that being said, Hanami closes her eyes and departs from the world. In the present time, the siblings are finally admitted to the magic school and Miyuki questions Tatsuya why he was made a reserve even when he got top scores in the entrance exam. Tatsuya replies that practical magic skills are more important in the academy as compared to paper tests. Furthermore, he asks her to chill out and says some sweet stuff to his Miyuki, which makes the sister with brother complex overjoyed. Apparently, it's pretty hard to enter this magic school as the students get treated as elites. However, reserves like Tatsuya are looked down upon by other students. Just then, the student council president appears and introduces herself as Mayumi, but as the opening ceremony is about to start, Tatsuya leaves. There, a baddie decides to sit next to Tatsuya and introduces herself as Mizuki and her friend, Erika, as well. Eventually, the ceremony begins and Miyuki turns out to be the representative of the incoming class and gives a speech in front of the whole crowd. After the ceremony, while talking to Mizuki, Tatsuya figures that she is hypersensitive to spirit particle emission and decides to stay away from her to protect his secret. Following that, Miyuki appears, thinking that her brother has already bagged two hotties, only to find out that they are his classmates. The next morning, Tatsuya along with Miyuki visit a shrine where Tatsuya begins fighting instantly while the bald loser sneaks up to Miyuki, who is supposedly their master. He notices Miyuki's new uniform and starts thirsting over her until Tatsuya attacks him and the two of them begin their everyday training. The training continues until Tatsuya gets his shit handed to him by Baldy.
That was easy.
During class, a boy named Leonhard is impressed by Tatsuya's typing speed and later introduces himself. He then accidentally calls Erika a dude and she replies by calling him a forever alone loser, which transitions to the two of them arguing with each other. During lunch break, the four of them are having lunch together when Miyuki decides to join them. But her classmates arrive and advise her to not sit along with a bunch of reserves, or as they say, weeds. This causes Leonhard to get angry, but Tatsuya cools down the situation by leaving the table altogether. Even after school ends, Miyuki's classmates try to fight Erika and the others for not wanting Miyuki to go home with Tatsuya. The fight reaches the point where Leonhard almost punches the other guy until Erika stops them. At last, the student council appears to put an end to it. Luckily, Tatsuya makes up a lie to cover up for both sides and save them from punishment. Miyuki takes Tatsuya's side and so does Mayumi, which makes the stingy girl let it go and walk away. After she leaves, Shun, the arrogant lord, introduces himself to Tatsuya, still refusing to acknowledge him. Furthermore, the other girl also introduces themselves as Hanoka and thanks Tatsuya for calming down the situation, later requesting to walk home with him. Nonetheless, they all decide to walk home together and start discussing the weapons they use known as cat. Before heading home, they all make a quick stop to enjoy some crepes. The next morning, Mayumi invites Miyuki and Tatsuya to the student council office and introduces all the council members one by one. Miyuki wonders if Mary made her own bento, and Tatsuya agrees after taking a look at her injured fingers. Suzune mentions that the siblings appear more like lovers than siblings, and Tatsuya agrees. After they are done with lunch, Mayumi invites Miyuki to join the student council, but instead of agreeing, she starts glazing her brother and the scores he got. She decides to join only if they let Tatsuya join as well. But Suzune says that it's not allowed for a backhanded weed like Tatsuya to join the almighty student council. Eventually, Miyuki agrees to join the student council and Mary intervenes, saying that weed is allowed to join the disciplinary committee in the student council. Mayumi agrees with this, but Tatsuya argues that he is miserable at using magic and will just be clowned by the bullies instead of being able to stop them. But Mary replies that she can take care of that job and decides to discuss it more after school. During classes, everyone takes part in practical exams and Tatsuya is disappointed by his performance. After school, they once again visit the student council where the vice president, Hattori, greets Miyuki while ignoring Tatsuya. He starts arguing with Mary for wanting to register a weed in the disciplinary committee, but she takes Tatsuya's side by mentioning his skills to read activation sequences of magic. When Hattori doesn't believe it, Mary comments that she doesn't tolerate discrimination as the head of the committee. Nonetheless, he still refuses to acknowledge Tatsuya and Miyuki steps in, saying that it wouldn't be hard for her brother to defeat lowly scum in battle. Tatsuya then stops Miyuki from speaking and directly challenges Hattori to a battle, to which he agrees. Afterward, Miyuki apologizes for causing trouble for Tatsuya, but he consoles her by saying that all she was doing was getting angry in his place. Eventually, it is time for the battle and Mary explains the rules to both the contestants. Hattori thinks about how speed matters and his cat is fast enough not to lose to a weed. He figures that his victory is assured even before the battle begins and thinks about how the fight will play in his mind. With that being said, the battle begins and Tatsuya puts him down before he can even activate his cat, making him the victor. After the battle, Mary asks Tatsuya about his technique and Miyuki informs her that it is a technique Tatsuya learned from ninjutsu. Furthermore, he used seons to knock Hattori out in the form of compound waves. Azusa notices that Tatsuya's cat is from a famous facility that makes top-tier equipment. Eventually, Hattori wakes up and apologizes for being wrong about Tatsuya and Miyuki ends up forgiving him. With that being said, he heads to the disciplinary committee's office and finds a ton of toys lying around, which he decides to clean up. While cleaning up, Tatsuya mentions how the Course 1 students won't like being ordered around by a weed. Soon after, two other members of the committee arrive to give Tatsuya the bombastic side eye until they are told about Hattori's defeat. In the end, Mira tells Tatsuya that she is also fed up with all the discrimination and says that the committee might be a better environment for him. Back at home, Miyuki asks Tatsuya to recalibrate her CAD, but he makes sure to strip Miyuki before analyzing her plot. Nonetheless, Miyuki takes this chance to press her jugs against Tatsuya's back, asking if he'd like to smash Mayumi or Mary more. This causes Miyuki to punish Tatsuya, but he uses his powers to heal himself.
Yeah, boy.
The next day, Mary introduces both Tatsuya and Shun, who joined the committee, and later tells Tatsuya that all the committee members are allowed to use CAD. This results in Tatsuya deciding to borrow two of the committee's CADs, which is something the King of Arrogance doesn't like. Later, Tatsuya notices Erika in a fight and ends up saving her by using his CAD, later noticing her visible plot. The two of them then visit a martial arts club where the president of the Kendo Club and Kenjutsu Club seem to be having a disagreement. In the end, the two of them decide to battle it out, but it results in a draw. Kirihara isn't satisfied with the results and uses his magic to turn his sword into a real one, but Tatsuya intervenes and slams Kirihara onto the ground. His club mates start to argue with Tatsuya and begin attacking him, only to be utterly embarrassed in front of a crowd by Tatsuya. Following that, Tatsuya informs the student council about the events that took place, and Mary tells Jumanji that the disciplinary committee will be handling the situation instead of giving it to the correctional committee, of which he is in charge. He agrees and decides to punish Kirihara for trying to hurt a hottie like Mibu. After school, all the friends gather at a restaurant where Miyuki boasts about how strong her average Joe brother really is. Additionally, she mentions the fact that nullifying magic is one of Tatsuya's specialties that he used to end the last fight as well. Tatsuya takes this chance to explain that he uses one CAD to jam the other and the second CAD to launch an activation sequence that has the opposite effect. However, he plans to keep this technique a secret, as society would be shaken if a way to nullify magic is revealed. The next morning, Tatsuya is informed about a fight by Mary, but when he heads there, a person tries to attack him but fails to do so. Later that day, he and Miyuki meet up with Mibu, who thanks Tatsuya for the help and invites him to hang out with her. However, Miyuki seems to be a bit concerned as she thinks that Mibu might be after the monster in Tatsuya's pants, but he reassures her that she has no such plans. With that being said, Tatsuya meets up with Mibu, who first thanks him and then invites him to join the kendo team, but he refuses. Her reason for wanting to recruit him is to show everyone that she, along with all the other weeds, are strong even without the help of magic. The next day, Tatsuya is having lunch with the student council when Mary teases him for trying to rizz up Mibu during their conversation. Hearing this makes Miyuki furious, but Tatsuya calms her down and informs Mibu that average students are starting to take the disciplinary committee. Mayumi mentions that it must be because someone from the committee might be abusing their powers, but they are unaware who that might be. Following that, Tatsuya is called to the counseling room by the lady with big racks. She then asks him a few questions, and before Tatsuya leaves, she questions if Mibu has asked him out, but Tatsuya calls it nothing but a false rumor. Elsewhere, the Four Eyes manipulator pressures Mibu to somehow recruit Tatsuya into the kendo club. Back at home, Tatsuya informs Miyuki about the political organization engaging in anti-magic activities and mentions that they are working behind the scenes at their school as well. He believes that the person who attacked him might be a part of them as well. In the end, Tatsuya comments that he has a unique ability that many people don't, but if he didn't, he could have been one of the anti-magic terrorists who believe in the so-called ideal called equality. Tatsuya manages to clear a practical exam, and Mizuki finds it pretty surprising that a popular Rizzler like him does struggle with some aspects of life. However, she finds it interesting that Tatsuya cancels his magic sequence and rebuilds it from scratch during the test when he could just read the activation sequence and build his first magic sequence simultaneously. Tatsuya agrees, saying that for basic single system spells, he could do that, but for things like practical exams or, for example, transporting an egg, he needs to take care of other aspects or the egg might break. But while fighting an opponent, he doesn't need to take care of those other aspects and could activate his spell much faster. Later, he meets up with Mibu once again, and she discusses how the weeds shouldn't be treated like some background characters. But Tatsuya argues that the school doesn't have to do anything, and he won't be blaming them for what the students are doing to each other. Later, an announcement is made by a student who wants to abolish discrimination within the school and wants to negotiate with the student council on equal terms. Tatsuya then meets up with Mary and the others, who inform him that those students have locked themselves in the broadcasting room. Geomanji comments that he is willing to negotiate with those students, and Tatsuya calls Mibu, who is inside the room, about the council agreeing to negotiate with them. As soon as they open the door, the council restricts the others, excluding Mibu, but Mayumi asks them to let them go, wanting to have proper negotiations with them. The next day, Mayumi informs Tatsuya that they want equal treatment of both Course 1 and Course 2 students, and the council agreed to hold an open forum after school the next day. Following that, Tatsuya catches Keno wanting to recruit for the open forum until Tatsuya stops him and recognizes him as the guy who attacked him that day. At night, Saitama informs Tatsuya that Keno's older stepbrother is the leader of an anti-magic organization named Blanche, which involves illegal activity. With that being said, the forum takes place the next day, and Mayumi wins the hearts of everyone by mentioning that even though weeds can't be selected as the student council members, her final task before stepping down will be to remove such a rule, and plans to make improvements in all the other areas as well. Just then, an explosion occurs and gas bombs are thrown inside the building, but Hattori controls and throws them outside. Simultaneously, some terrorists enter the building, and Mary manages to sit them down like the dogs they are. However, more terrorists appear and launch the Fortnite rocket launcher. During this situation, Tatsuya tells Mary that he will go and take a look at where the explosion took place. Leonhard is fighting the terrorists and almost gets attacked when Miyuki appears and takes care of them. At the same time, Erika comes with Cads to help them fight the attackers. Soon after, Ono appears and agrees to inform Tatsuya about the situation only if he agrees to give Mibu another chance. However, he doesn't get swept off by her melons and runs away after refusing, forcing the others to follow him. Eventually, they arrive at the main battleground, and Leonhard steps forward and begin fighting the enemies using his cat. Meanwhile, Tatsuya along with Miyuki and Erika arrive at the library, where he uses Superman's X-ray vision to find the hidden enemies. Erika decides to take care of them, allowing Tatsuya and Miyuki to move forward. Elsewhere, Mibu is present with the enemies who are stealing students' search history when Tatsuya arrives. As soon as one of them is about to shoot Tatsuya, Miyuki freezes his hand. Tatsuya informs Mibu that she is being used by Four Eyes, making her frustrated as she only wanted to get rid of discrimination. Miyuki tries to sweet-talk Mibu, but her companions put up a smoke screen and try fighting Tatsuya, only to fail miserably. Mibu manages to run away but finds Erika in her path. The two of them begin fighting until Mibu's weapon is cut in half. This results in Mibu locking the hell in and taking out her Thundercat sword. However, Erika also uses a special technique that breaks Mibu's arm and makes Erika the winner. On the other hand, Kino is also confronted and taken into custody by the disciplinary committee. After the whole situation comes under control, Mibu confesses everything to the student council and finds out that she spent a whole year resenting Mibu because of a misunderstanding. Tatsuya reassures Mibu that she didn't waste her year as she made sure to practice and improve her sword skills, ultimately growing stronger. This results in her crying while hugging Tatsuya, causing Miyuki to close her eyes in jealousy. Following that, Tatsuya reveals that he is planning to go to Blanche's headquarters and exterminate them. Miyuki decides to tag along, but when Mibu asks to join him, he refuses as it's best if she stays away from them. Ono also enters the room and gives them the location of the headquarters. Eventually, Juomonji decides to go with Tatsuya as it is his duty being a member of the Ten Master Clan. Just when Juomonji is about to leave, Kirihara runs up to him, requesting he take him along. He is so intent on going because Mibu was used by those Blanche people and he wants to punish them. Seeing him appear manly despite being a Roblox addict makes Juomonji agree to take him along. Juomonji along with the others are on their way to the Blanche headquarters and Tatsuya tells them the plan of execution. As soon as they get close, Leonhardt strengthens the car to break through the gate. With that being said, Tatsuya enters the building and uses his vision to find the enemies waiting for them in the room ahead. The two of them then enter that room where the leader of Blanche, Hajime, greets them. Tatsuya advises them to surrender, but Hajime uses his powers of hypnosis on Tatsuya to make him twerk in front of everyone, which fails to work against him. He also figures that Hajime used this same power on Mibu to replace his memories. Hajime's lackeys prepare to fire, but Tatsuya tears apart their weapon, resulting in Hajime running for his life. Tatsuya begins following him and one of the henchmen tries attacking, but Miyuki ends up freezing him. Furthermore, she freezes the rest of them as well while Juomonji and Kirihara take care of the rest of the lackeys. Eventually, Tatsuya manages to find Hajime hiding behind his men, and when they try to fire at Tatsuya, he begins firing at them as well. Simultaneously, Kirihara enters the room and slashes the hand he jerks off with. After the other authorities visit the location, Tatsuya comes out and reassures Miyuki that the enemies she froze are alright. The next day, Tatsuya pays Mibu a visit and informs her about the situation along with the fact that the authorities won't be coming after her because she was hypnotized. Elsewhere, Maya finds out about this incident but is quite alright with it until Tatsuya obeys his role as Miyuki's guardian. After a few days, Tatsuya along with Erika and Miyuki visit the hospital to celebrate Mibu being discharged, and her father thanks Tatsuya for taking care of his daughter. Tatsuya also finds out that Kazama, who knows about Tatsuya's secret, is someone friends with Mibu's father. Following that, Erika teases Mibu for being down bad for Tatsuya and surprisingly, she agrees. She used to be in love with him earlier but now has switched ships and is currently simping over Kirihara. Luckily, Kirihara feels the same way about Mibu as well. Erika continues to tease Kirihara, making him run after her. After leaving the hospital, Miyuki promises to follow Tatsuya wherever he goes and wonders if it isn't hard for him to force himself to go to school just for her sake. But Tatsuya replies that no one is forcing him to go to school, and he only does so to experience an ordinary life along with his sister. Later, Miyuki is training at the shrine when the milk factory appears as well. Ono asks Miyuki if she will be entering the 9 schools competition, but before Miyuki can reply, Tatsuya also questions Ono's identity, and Yakumo reveals that Ono is a public safety investigator for the police department and has been training under Yakumo since she got that job. The next day, all the boys are playing football and Mikihiko manages to score the winning goal. After the game, Leonhardt compliments the wannabe Rin from Blue Lock. Erika also joins them, revealing that she is a childhood friend of Mikihiko. However, Mikihiko and the other boys get a bit flustered after seeing her thighs revealing outfit. Leonhardt mentions that she must want to earn some pocket change by getting freaky with boomers, resulting in Erika kicking him. During lunch, Mayumi reveals that their school's contestants for the upcoming 9-school competition are finalized, but they are still struggling to finalize engineering. Just then Tatsuya is about to leave. Mayumi gets the idea of making him one of the engineers. Tatsuya tries to argue and refuse, but they gaslight him into agreeing by saying that Miyuki will be needing a trustworthy engineer for her battles. Following that, Tatsuya shows Azura his new holster made by Taurus Silver, the stunning engineer she worships. This makes her curious to find out more about him, and Tatsuya begins feeding her some information until Mayumi reminds her of her unfinished assignment. Later that day, Juomonji reveals Tatsuya as the new engineer, and when other contestants begin to disagree, Juomonji decides to let them see his skills and Kirihara volunteers to let Tatsuya tune his CAD. Eventually, he completes tuning his CAD and succeeds, but some ugly whiners still remain dissatisfied with what Tatsuya did. This results in Azusa along with Hattori speaking in Tatsuya's favor, saying that the honor of school is on the line and they can't let themselves listen to what some losers have to say. Back at home, Tetsuya gets a call from the Navy officer Kazama. He informs Tetsuya about the duties he needs to perform and tells him to watch his back as the site for the 9-school competition is in the Southeast Fuji training area. In that area, Kazuma's men have spotted members of an international crime syndicate. According to Mibu's father, who works for Kazuma as well, the crime syndicate is called No Head Dragon. Later, Miyuki brings Tetsuya some tea while wearing the magical girl cosplay and gets surprised after seeing Tetsuya successful in launching a flying spell. He then gives the device to Miyuki and she begins flying as well, looking like a true magical girl out to defeat losers like you. The next day, Tetsuya visits a facility where the workers welcome him and Ashiyama calls him Taurus Silver. Tetsuya then shows them the flight device he made, which makes Ashiyama excited as he knows that it'll change the history of modern magic. Following that, a bunch of employees test Tetsuya's device and their dreams of becoming Homelander reawaken. Then, Tetsuya and Miyuki run into Aoki, who is the butler of the Yotsuba family and refuses to greet Tetsuya as he is a mere bodyguard. He further says that Miyuki, who is most likely the next head of the Yotsuba family, should be respected more. Tetsuya puts the midget butler in a bind by saying that he supports a single candidate and is spreading rumors to her about her being the next successor. Additionally, Tetsuya lets him know that insulting him means insulting Mia, who is the older sister of the current head, Maya. The next day, Tetsuya's classmates congratulate him for being selected for the competition and mention how his being the only weed will piss off the others. Following that, the competitors are announced by Mayumi and are given badges by Miyuki. After that, Tetsuya begins a meeting with the competitors he is in charge of. Meanwhile, Mizuki notices a large amount of magic inside the school and goes to check it out. Mikihiko notices someone peeking and attacks Mizuki without knowing, but luckily, Tetsuya nullifies his magic. Afterward, Mikihiko apologizes as he didn't mean to hurt the big melon nerd and thanks Tetsuya for protecting her. Mikihiko then reveals that he is practicing summoning magic using water spirits. He finds out about Mizuki's sensitive crystal eye powers and gets close enough to see all the pores on her skin, making both of them embarrassed. The next morning, everyone is ready to leave for the site when Mayumi comes running. She asks Tetsuya about her looks and instead of complimenting the style she stole from Dress to Impress, Tetsuya walks away with average praise. Along the way, Mayumi is pissed at Tetsuya when Hattori appears and locks his eyes on Mayumi's kitty. Suzune confronts him at first, then allows him to sit next to her. On the other bus, Miyuki is sad about not getting to sit next to Tetsuya, but luckily, Shizuku compliments Tetsuya, which improves her mood. Suddenly, a car crashes in front of the bus, causing it to hit the brakes, and other vehicles corner the bus as well. The car caught in the accident comes rushing towards the bus and everyone prepares to take care of it. As soon as the car comes close to the bus, a shield appears and Jumanji puts a barrier to stop it from hitting the bus. After the incident, Mary scolds everyone who got up to use magic as it could have just cancelled each other's magic sequence, causing it to hit the bus. She then figures that it was Tetsuya who erased those magic sequences. After reaching the destination, Hattori seems disappointed that Miyuki responded to the car crash situation better than he did, but Kirihara reassures him that those siblings are something a lowly scum like him can't reach, as Tetsuya gives him the vibes of someone from the Navy while his sister is nothing less of a magician as well. Meanwhile, Tetsuya informs Miyuki that it wasn't an accident and that the driver of the vehicle used magic to make it look like one. After entering the hotel, they find Erika and Mizuki present there as well, who come to support their school. At night, there is a banquet where Erika is dressed up as a maid cafe girl. Following that, Shizuku tells Tetsuya that Miyuki's classmates want to talk to her but are scared to approach her due to Tetsuya's dominating aura. Due to this, he asks Miyuki to greet her classmates and promises Mikihiko to introduce him to Miyuki later. Erika tells Tetsuya that Leonhardt and Mizuki are present as well but are taking care of things in the kitchen. Eventually, the host of the event takes place on the stage and Tetsuya notices something fishy going on. But it turns out to be only a test for the students, as the host mentions that only Tetsuya noticed the thing that happened and if it were a terrorist, everyone would have been poisoned. With that being said, they end the ceremony by advising everyone to be more diligent in their magical studies. Later that night, Shizuku advises Miyuki to watch Mayumi's speed shooting battle that will take place tomorrow, as she is sure to win that battle. Just then, Aimi and the other girls appear and invite them to visit the hot springs. While enjoying the hot springs, Aimi decides to enjoy Hanoka's plot instead. Hanoka asks Shizuku for help, but Shizuku decides to ignore her due to her own washboard. Eventually, Miyuki enters the hot tub and the girls decide to switch their genders after seeing her flawless skin. They then begin their girls' talk about the boy they found the most handsome, while Mikihiko uses his powers and notices some burglars in the area. Instead of informing the security, He decides to take it into his own hands and realizes that someone helped him fight those burglars, and that person turns out to be Tatsuya. Tatsuya compliments Mikihiko for knocking the burglars without seriously injuring them using his magic and says that he seriously degrades himself. After Mikihiko leaves, Kazama appears and tells Tatsuya that Mikihiko seems to be going through the same problems that he once used to go through. The next day, everyone is gathered to watch the first match, and Miyuki mentions that Hanoka is slowly becoming a muscle mommy, making Tatsuya climax. Apparently, the first game is of women's battle board and Mary is the one representing their school. Soon after, the battle begins and Mary easily takes the lead. Tatsuya notices that Mary is reinforcing the connection between herself and the board so she doesn't fall off. After making a jump, Mary splashes water on the other contestants, making sure to show off her rotten personality. Following that, Tatsuya visits a room where Kazama and the other Navy officers are present. They plan to discuss the no-head dragon activities, and Tatsuya mentions that he wasn't particularly looking for them but ended up running into a few of them during his late-night walk. Furthermore, Kazama advises Tatsuya not to use his secret military-grade magic in the competition as all eyes would be on him that way. After that, it is time for Mayumi's speed shooting contest, and she impresses everyone with her aimbot, hitting all 100 targets in a matter of time. That night, the girls celebrate Mayumi's win and talk about the boys' battle board which Hattori managed to win. Afterward, Miyuki visits Tatsuya's room and he advises her not to roam around the hotel late at night due to creeps like Hattori lurking in the hallway. She then notices the cat he has been developing, and Tatsuya reassures her that she is more important to him, making Miyuki a bit steamy. The next day, Tatsuya helps Mayumi out with her practice and she tells him not to act formally around her. Then, Mayumi participates in the magic tennis and brings out her Serena Williams to secure the dub. Eventually, it is time for Kanon to compete in the Ice Pillars break competition. Both of the contestants start using magic to destroy the ice pillars, and as expected, Kanon manages to win. Following that, the students are calculating their chances of winning the whole thing as few of the students performed terribly in their battle. It turns out that their school needs to win 4 of the 6 remaining battles to secure their placement. In the evening, everyone visits Tatsuya's room and notices the cat he is developing. He gives it to Leonhardt, telling him to try using it. Tatsuya and Leonhardt take the cat outside and he flows magic through it, extending the length of the weapon. Some targets then appear and Leonhardt uses his new weapon to cut all of them in half. The next day, the girls' speedboard semifinals are taking place and one contestant accidentally overspeed, bumping into Mary and making her fall down as well. Later that day, Mary wakes up in a hospital with Mayumi next to her. She informs Mary that her ribs are broken, and it'll take a week for full recovery. She further mentions that it was Tatsuya who was the first one on the scene and brought her to the hospital, making her uncomfortable as she knew that Tatsuya must have caught a feel or two. Additionally, the water was behaving a bit weirdly and Mayumi believes that it was the work of a third party. Currently, Tatsuya is borrowing video footage and analyzing it in order to find the culprit. Elsewhere, Tatsuya and the others are analyzing the footage, glaring at the girls in swimsuits, and Kei mentions that it should have been hard for a third party to act, as many magicians are stationed who specialize in counter magic to avoid these things from happening. But Tatsuya thinks that someone could have been hiding underwater. Soon after, Mizuki and Mikihiko arrive to help Tatsuya out, and he mentions that it is impossible to hide one's presence using magic. So, it could have been something else underwater that tweaked the water flow. He also believes that the girl who accepted could have her CAD tampered with and the staff for the competition could be responsible. The next day, the student council discusses the fact that they need to win the 2 remaining games in order to win the tournament. Furthermore, as points for official matches are twice than that of the newcomer matches, they have decided to sacrifice that event to focus on the official Mirage Bat match. Turns out Miyuki will be the substitute for Mary at the Mirage Bat, while Tatsuya will be the engineer in charge of her. Later, Tatsuya checks Shizuku's CAD before her match, and when Shizuku suggests him becoming her personal slave, but he refuses. With that being said, everyone is present to watch Shizuku's match, and Mayumi mentions that it'll be the first time they get to see Tatsuya's engineering. After the qualifier round, Tatsuya meets up with Shizuku and decides to improve her CAD even more later. Eventually, he tweaks and installs some cheesy hacks in her operator. Shizuku seems satisfied with it and decides to win it. In the next round, Shizuku competes against another school and easily secures the victory royale. Mayumi congratulates all the contestants as their school secured the top 3 stops at the contest, and Mary praises Tatsuya for doing a good job as their engineer as well. The other school student council discusses the fact that Shizuku was the only talented one and the 2nd and 3rd place were just normies, and the only reason they secured such a high spot is because of their engineer. Their president decides to focus more on the matches that Tatsuya is competing in and figures that their devices are 2 or 3 generations behind the ones Tatsuya develops. Up next, it's Hanoka's turn to compete in speedboarding. She uses magic to disturb the balance of the other contestant and take the lead. However, it turns out that was just an optical illusion she used and didn't disturb the water flow by any means. After winning the race, she comes running to Tatsuya and begins crying because as someone whose only good feature are her rice cakes has never won anything. Meanwhile, the no-head dragon is holding a meeting and discussing that if the favorites win the events, it will damage the bookmakers. Eventually, they decide to take some measures to make sure it doesn't happen. Later that night, Miyuki visits Tatsuya's room and asks if he refused to publish the article about his magic with his name because of Maya. He agrees, saying that he currently can't go against her will to keep the name of Taurus Silver a secret. Furthermore, he is not strong enough to defeat Maya or make the Yotsuba family surrender. This results in Miyuki giving him a hug, reassuring Tatsuya that his time will surely come. The next morning, Shizuku puts on clothes that girls at the entertainment district wear to compete. Eventually, the ice pillar breaking competition begins and both of the contestants make sure to give it their all. Elsewhere, Hanoka is gazing at Tatsuya's beefy arms while he works, remembering the first time she saw his magic at the entrance exam. As Miyuki's battle is up next, the student council baddies arrive to support them. Soon after, the battle begins and Miyuki first uses her magic to further freeze her contestant's ice pillar and destroys all of her own in an instant. At night, all the hotties of their school have surrounded Tatsuya, asking him to hook up with them after seeing his engineering skills. Shun, rocking his negative aura hairstyle, gets annoyed by all the girls around Tatsuya and leaves the room, telling his teammates that they need to win their next battle. Masaki and Shinkuru from the third school meet up with Tatsuya, saying that they wanted to see what the talented Rizzler engineer looks like. After Tatsuya doesn't give them the attention they are seeking, Shinkuru walks away, saying that their school will win against him. Now for the next competition. All the contestants are wearing anti-optical illusion glasses to not get tricked by Hanoka. As soon as the game begins, Erika notices that the contestant from the third school is avoiding shadows on the track and Mikihiko mentions that it must be due to the Ray-Bans they are wearing, as seeing the shadowy parts while wearing dark glasses is quite hard. Eventually, Hanoka wins once again. And later, Mayumi praises the three girls competing in the pillar breaking for keeping the top 3 positions secured. The next day, Miyuki and Shizuku compete in the ice pillar breaking competition. Shizuku decides to use 2 CAD simultaneously to further her chances of winning. However, it is still not enough to defeat the brother complex queen, as in the end, Miyuki emerges as the victor. After the competition, Hanoka visits Shizuku's room to console her, and she mentions that she wasn't able to do anything to fight back and that it was entirely one-sided. The following morning, Tatsuya is told about how there was a clear violation of rules at Shun's match and he sustained serious injuries. Shizuku mentions that they were attacked as soon as the match started and one can't do it without knowing where the enemies are. Mayumi then requests to talk to Tatsuya alone, and he thinks that things might get steamy, only for her to discuss this incident in detail. She thinks that someone is trying to sabotage them, as the same thing happened with Mary earlier. Tatsuya reveals the information about No-Head Dragon to Mayumi, and she advises him not to do anything dangerous. That night, it is time for the Mirage Bat competition to take place. Hanoka begins dominating it from the start. While watching the competition, Azusa notices that all of Tatsuya's engineering work looks similar to Taurus Silver's work and wonders if he himself is Silver. Later, Tatsuya is called by the student council, where Mayumi says that it could be hard for their school to win against the geniuses of the third school, and requests Tatsuya to compete in the Monolith Code contest. However, Tatsuya replies that they shouldn't be choosing a substitute from the staff when there are other contestants available. But Juomanji tells Tatsuya not to act like a spoiled brat and mentions that he is one of the 22 student council members among the 200 average students at their school. In order to deal with the emergency situation, Mayumi has chosen him to compete as a member of the student body. He isn't allowed to go against the orders of his leader, and having no other choice, Tatsuya accepts. He then gets the chance to pick his other 2 teammates, and Tatsuya ends up picking Leonhardt and Mikihiko. With that being said, Tatsuya informs the boys about it and asks Leonhardt to take care of defense and defend the monolith from falling into enemy hands. Meanwhile, he tells Mikihiko to take care of the guerrilla tactics, which include both offense and defense. With that being said, the first round of the battle begins and Tatsuya uses Gram Demolishing to take care of his enemies, making everyone surprised. Eventually, he targets the monolith and wins against the contestant school. Meanwhile, Leonhardt uses his CAD that Tatsuya gave him to beat his opponent, and Mikihiko uses ancient magic to defeat his opponent as well. Elsewhere, Shinkuru tells Masaki that Tatsuya most likely can't use powerful magic and they need to be wary of the tricks he might use. Following that, Tatsuya also managed to secure a dub in the semifinals. After that, it is the third school's turn and Tatsuya decides to watch and learn their fighting pattern. On his way there, he notices Erika arguing with her brother for getting freaky with Mary, but he mentions that his intentions were pure and just wanted to see Mary after finding out that she was injured. Erika then meets up with Miyuki, who teases her for acting tough when in reality, she also has a brother complex. Following that, Tetsuya watches the match of the third school where Masaki secures himself from attacks using a shield and uses the powers he copied from Avatar's stone bending to break the monolith. After winning their next match, Mikihiko visits the roof where he runs into Erika. She motivates him to perform better and wishes him luck for the finals. Meanwhile, Tetsuya meets up with Ono, asking her to find the headquarters of the No-Head Dragon. During their conversation, Ono accidentally gives Tetsuya a feel of her talents, only to get embarrassed after realizing it. At the same time, Shinkuru tells Masaki that the final will take place in an open field as in a head-to-head battle, and their chances of winning against Tetsuya are even greater as the only thing he will have up his sleeve is Gram Demolition. Tetsuya gives his teammates some robes with magic circles inside them. They allow the magician to use magic easily and will also protect them from the invisible bullets that the third school uses. Mayumi asks Tetsuya about his game plan as the battle will take place in an open field, which is the specialty of third school. But Tetsuya replies that all he needs to do is force them into close combat, and it'll be an easy dub. With that being said, all three of them are present on the battlefield, thinking that the robes make them look like they are part of some Illuminati type shit. Shinkuru looks at their robe and can't figure out the reason behind it, but Masaki reassures him that it isn't going to affect their chance of victory. Soon after, the battle starts and Tetsuya blocks Masaki's magic spell. Nonetheless, he keeps on attacking and moving forward while Tetsuya makes sure to block all of them. Shinkuru also tries to attack Leonhardt, but he takes out his CAD and attacks back, which Shinkuru manages to dodge. Mikihiko then plays with Shinkuru's senses and Leonhardt attacks once again, but Masaki manages to save him. This allows Shinkuru to take care of Mikihiko while Masaki, in a bind, accidentally targets Tetsuya with several magic circles, enough to end his life. While he manages to block most of the magic circles, one of them hits Tetsuya and badly injures him, but he uses his abilities to heal himself. Tetsuya then snaps his fingers next to Misaki with such intensity that it sends him to Wonderland. Kusuke watches Tetsuya's self-regeneration technique and gets quite excited. But Kyoyuko reminds him not to look at Tetsuya as a lab rat, as he is one of the two most important assets their country has. At the same time, Mikihiko manages to get back up and uses his ancient magic to first force Shinkuru to lift up from the ground and then strikes him with a lightning bolt. This allows their third member to attack Mikihiko, but Leonhardt protects him and slams that guy with his makeshift hammer CAD. This results in them being the victors of the battle and everyone begins celebrating. Miyuki is the one who is the happiest as she begins bawling. Meanwhile, at the No-Head Dragon headquarters, the higher-ups are starting to panic due to the first high schools winning and realize that they might be out on the streets if things remain the same, as the total loss will exceed $100 million. One of them decides to use force and make the contestant for Mirage Bat quit before the contest. Tetsuya is also suspicious that something might go down at the Mirage Bat and reassures Miyuki that he will protect her no matter what. The next day, Kobayakawa is the first one to participate from their school. Mizuki decides to not wear her glasses so she can closely notice the battle and find out if someone tries to do some shady stuff. During the battle, Kobayakawa is currently in first place when suddenly her CAD stops working, causing her to fall down until she is saved and taken out of the battle. Mizuki calls Tetsuya and informs him that she saw spirits bursting from the direction of Kobayakawa's CAD. This allows Tetsuya to figure out what could be the reason and asks Miyuki to prepare for her match. Following that, he takes Miyuki's CAD to the staff, and noticing them tampering with it, Tetsuya throws the wimpy loser onto the ground. Before he can crush that guy's balls to get all the answers, the head of the Kyudo family, Ritsu, appears and starts off by complimenting Tetsuya's performance in his match. Tetsuya then informs him about everything, and after taking a look at Miyuki's CAD, Ritsu figures that they are using golden electron silkworms to delay the activation of magic spells. After the criminal is taken away, Ritsu allows Tetsuya to use another CAD while he stares at the other employees with his hollow eyes. After that, Tetsuya returns to the camp where Miyuki apologizes that he had to become angry for her sake, but he reassures Miyuki that it is all big bros do. Simultaneously, Mayumi appears and teases Tetsuya for being a creep. After the first round of the battle, Miyuki requests Tetsuya to let her use the flight CAD and he agrees. With that being said, Miyuki begins flying in the arena, scoring all the points and shocking every spectator present. Elsewhere, the No-Head Dragon members begin to shit their pants, and having no other choice, they decide to put an end to the tournament by eliminating a bunch of spectators, and for that, they remove a limiter from a specific person. But before he can act, Inagi from the Navy throws him outside the arena and dominates him without an issue. Meanwhile, Miyuki pays Tatsuya a visit to his room and requests that he stay by her side while she sleeps. Tatsuya, the sister-doting freak, agrees and holds her hand while she falls asleep. Eventually, it is time for the final battle, and this time, everyone begins flying in the arena. Tatsuya figures that the staff must have leaked some spells from Miyuki's CAD to avoid such a one-sided battle. Soon after, the other contestants begin to get exhausted and the safety features automatically bring them down, allowing Miyuki to secure the victory once again. At night, all the baddies are drinking McFlurry to celebrate Miyuki's win. They ask Miyuki about Tatsuya, and she thinks that he is resting, but in reality, Tatsuya is in a Mini Cooper with the Milk Monster and leaves after taking the data from her regarding the no-head dragon. He then goes to sit in Kaio-yuko's car, where he explains what Ono does to Kaio-yuko as they drive away towards a love hotel. Elsewhere, Ritsu is having a conversation about Tatsuya with Kazama and mentions that he used to be the tutor of Miya and Maya for some time. Ritsu also finds the Yotsuba clan's decision regarding Tatsuya regrettable, as he'll likely become a key person in their magic military along with Masaki. Elsewhere, Tatsuya along with Kaio-yuko climbs a tower, and from there, he shoots one of the no-head dragon higher-ups, making him disappear into nothingness. Following that, they receive a call from Tatsuya and he informs them about their expiring car insurance while continuing to shoot the others as well. They try to call for help, but Tatsuya has already jammed the radio waves, making communication impossible. One of them starts begging Tatsuya to spare his life as the no-head dragon will leave Japan altogether, but Tatsuya refuses. Eventually, he tells Tatsuya about his boss's name, Richard Sun. However, being the menace Tatsuya is, he still eliminates him. The next day, Jumanji's team participates in the monolith battle while Tatsuya meets up with the Navy men, apologizing for asking for their help with his personal matters. After Jumanji's win, Mayumi tells him that she has been banned from the top 10 families meetings for the time being as Tatsuya defeated Masaki, who is a part of the top 10 families. Apparently, they want their powers to be shown in these competitions as well, which Mayumi finds totally absurd. Later, Tatsuya watches Jumanji's battle where he uses his shield magic to wipe the enemy team on his own. In the end, their school ends up winning the whole competition, and that night, a banquet takes place. There, Masaki finds out that Miyuki is actually Tatsuya's little sister. Tatsuya also does Masaki a solid by letting him dance with Miyuki, which he appreciates. Following that, Hanoka comes up to Tatsuya in order to dance with him. At first, he doesn't get her intentions until Erika pushes the thought of dancing through his thick skull, allowing the two of them to dance together. However, she isn't the only one, as the Rizzler takes turns dancing with other hotties as well. Afterward, Jumanji takes Tatsuya outside and advises him to join the top master clans as well. Furthermore, he tells Tatsuya to bag Mayumi, who is also a part of 10 master clans, as defeating Masaki isn't a thing that can be taken lightly. As there is some shady stuff happening at the port, Chiba along with Inagaki are responsible for taking care of it. The two of them run towards the port, and after introducing themselves as police, they take care of the enemies, only to notice that the ship with illegal stuff has already left. Luckily, Chiba attacks it with magic, and Inagaki steps inside, only to realize that those men have already left. Back at the school, Miyuki pays Tatsuya a visit, and he figures that she must be busy after being made the new vice president. He then informs her that he is looking at publishing related to emerald tablets, as it is used in transforming base metals into precious ones. Later, Tatsuya meets up with a teacher who informs him about the thesis competition that will be taking place. He advises Tatsuya to take part in it, and Suzune mentions that she was the one who recommended him. Apparently, Suzune will be the main writer and the other two will be assisting her. Furthermore, her theme for the paper is the technical possibilities of a gravity control type magic thermonuclear fusion reactor. Eventually, he agrees to help her out, and Suzune explains that the location where the competition will take place can be between Kyoto and Yokohama. Later, Tatsuya informs his friends about being selected, and they talk about how the pointy-chin fellow doesn't seem that excited. He only has 9 days to prepare, but it is manageable as he already is aware of the theme that Suzune chose. At night, the siblings return home and find their stepmother inside the house. After Miyuki leaves to cook dinner, Sayuri wonders if the siblings still don't like her, but Tatsuya replies that it is true for Miyuki, but he couldn't care less about his dad marrying a girl who looks eye-generated. Apparently, she wants Tatsuya's help at the headquarters laboratory and wants him to drop out of high school. But he refuses, saying that he will stay at the school until Miyuki attends it as a student. She then shows him the 9 no Magatama relic, and Tatsuya figures that the Defense Force wants her to artificially synthesize it, which is almost impossible. But in the end, Tatsuya refuses to help her out and she angrily leaves the house. Surprisingly, Tatsuya decides to follow her on his Tron bike and witnesses her getting attacked. Luckily, he manages to take care of the enemies but gets shot as well. However, Tatsuya manages to heal his wounds and eliminates the sniper who shot him. After returning home, Tatsuya informs Kazama about the incident and asks him to find the enemies behind it. Mizuki then brings him dinner and he shows her the relic that their stepmother left for him, letting Miyuki know that he'll try to replicate it as it has the power to store magic sequences. This also means that thanks to the relic, powerful magic weapons can be deployed in great numbers. Elsewhere, an organization leader is told that they failed to secure the relic and he orders them to acquire it no matter what. The next day, Tatsuya runs into Mayumi, who comes to gather material for the upcoming thesis. She forces him to go inside the computer room together and sit close enough so he can smell the new Dove shampoo she used. Mayumi then gets jealous regarding the fact that Tatsuya is working with Suzyun and wonders why he isn't making a move when a hottie like her is next to him. Tatsuya replies that he is controlling himself because of the surveillance camera, and if it was not present, he would have gotten freaky real quick. Later, he informs Ono about the attack and asks if she can tell him about the organization that is involved in buying and selling secret magic information. Ono replies and informs Tatsuya about the illegal incidents that have been happening in Yokohama. He then also informs Kei about the incident when Mary visits the room. She tells Tatsuya that the disciplinary committee will be in charge of guarding the students who are participating along with their research and equipment. But Tatsuya says that he doesn't want protection, to which Mary agrees. Later that day, Tatsuya notices them being watched by someone and the spy starts running. Kei and Kanon try to stop her by targeting her Vespa, but she still manages to escape. Elsewhere, Shen from the organization behind these crimes is told about Tatsuya and he decides to make his school a target as well. He then orders Lu to take care of anyone who tries interfering. The next day, Tatsuya's other classmates also mention that they felt being watched by someone, and Mikihiko adds the fact that he has sensed ancient magic in their school that doesn't belong to their country. After school, Tatsuya's group is heading home and they notice someone following them. Without making a big deal, they decide to stop at a cafe. Elsewhere, Chiba and Inagaki also visit an information breaker and find Kaioyuko sitting next to them, who comes up to them and introduces herself. Sometime after, Erika and Leonhardt leave the cafe to confront the mustache master following them. They manage to bring him down, but he says that he is not their enemy. That person introduces himself as Gyro and says that his job is to make sure magic technologies aren't stolen by magic high school students and given to the East. Suddenly, Gyro takes out his Nerf gun and points it at them, letting them know that their school is one of East's targets as well. With that being said, Gyro advises them to keep their eyes open even within the school and leaves after dropping a smoke bomb on them. While he was running away, Gyro ran into Lu. In an instant, Lu breaks his arm and ends his miserable life. Tatsuya and Suzyun are testing out their thesis in front of the whole school when Mibu notices a suspicious-looking girl and begins running after her. Eventually, she manages to catch up with that girl, who introduces herself as Chiaki. Mibu mentions that she used to be a spy as well and asks Chiaki to cut her connections with that organization, but Chiaki refuses, saying that it's not like she wants something from that organization. She then tries fighting the three of them and the musclehead throws her onto the ground, making Chiaki lose consciousness. They then take Chiaki to the infirmary, where the average hot nurse mentions that Chiaki is alright and will wake up soon. After returning, Erika gets into an argument with Sekimoto over the spy and Kanon cools him down by reassuring him that they will continue to look out for suspicious individuals. He then tries checking out the thesis, but Suzyun shuts the screen down, making him walk away frustrated. Meanwhile, Kanon and Kei return to the infirmary and witness the nurse pinning Chiaki down to the ground. Following that, Chiaki reveals that her only motive was to hurt Tatsuya by messing with his thesis. Kei realizes that she is the sister of Hirakawa, who was injured in the 9 school games. Chiaki blames Tatsuya for what happened to her sister, as he didn't notice the malfunction her cat had. On the other hand, Erika and Leonhardt are traveling together in a fake taxi, and she comments on how Leonhardt's skillset doesn't include him having the resolve of eliminating someone, as due to all the things happening with the organization he might need to take that step. This results in Erika deciding to teach him a secret sword skill that might help him out. Tatsuya, along with others, is walking him when Kanon informs him about the kiddo who wants to sabotage him. On the other hand, Shen along with Lu is having a meeting with Shu and finds out that Chiaki hasn't told the school about them even after getting caught. The next day, Hanoka finds out from Tatsuya that both Erika and Leonhardt are skipping school together, and everyone begins thinking about wild things like making protein shakes. Meanwhile, Leonhardt accidentally runs into Erika in the changing room and gets climax. After receiving a slap from her, he begins training with Erika to increase his strength. At the same time, Jomonji is training the members of the security squad, which includes Mikihiko. He seems nervous at first but uses his ancient magic to corner Jomonji, which is something he finds really interesting. Following that, he visits the martial arts club where Mizuki joins him as they eat lunch together. While standing up, she loses her balance and Mikihiko uses this chance to grab her racks, making her embarrassed and run away. Mikihiko runs after her and bumps into a suspicious-looking student. not giving much mind to him. The next morning, Tatsuya and Miyuki visit their Saitama-looking master, who advises them to not hold onto the relic and return it as many people are after it. On their way back, Tatsuya notices and tells Miyuki that they are being followed by a magical crow, and he hurries to the laboratory, which is under attack by a hacker. Eventually, the hacking attempt stops and Tatsuya destroys the crow, but Chen manages to find out that Tatsuya is the one holding the relic. He also orders Lu to take care of Chiaki before Zhu gets his hands on Chiaki. Back at home, Tatsuya receives a call from Hirakawa, who agrees to send them Chiaki's phone logs to track the organization. Following that, Tatsuya visits the robot research lab, where a baddie-made robot greets him. Soon after, he starts feeling sleepy and realizes that someone is pushing sleeping gas inside the room. Even though he asks the robot to activate the ventilation system, Tatsuya still ends up falling asleep. Using this chance, Sekimoto breaks in but is confronted by Kanon, who catches him red-handed, calling him a spy. Turns out Tatsuya was just acting as well and wasn't sleeping. Nonetheless, she uses her magic to knock Sekimoto down to the ground. At the hospital, Naotsugu is meeting up with Mary and planning to hook up. Zhu, who is also at the hospital, notices Lu and makes the alarms go off. Naotsugu notices Lu and the two of them begin fighting each other. He manages to slash her sides and Mary assists him by attacking as well, making Lu fall to the ground floor. Back at the base, Chen orders Lu to ignore Chiaki and take care of Sekimoto for now, as he is discovered. Zhu also pays Chiaki a visit and uses his magic on a bouquet, and after seeing it, Chiaki forgets everything about Zhu. Later, Tatsuya along with Mary and Mayumi visit Sekimoto, and he confesses that his job was to steal the relic from Tatsuya. Just then, Lu enters the facility and Mary asks Tatsuya to protect Mayumi while she fights Lu. The fight between the two of them begins, but Lu ignores her and runs towards Tatsuya, but he injures Lu using his magic, allowing Mary to attack him using her blades, taking the gorilla down for good. At night, he talks to Kaioyuko about Lu's capture, and she thanks him as this helped them tremendously in other parts of the investigation as well. After the call, Tatsuya lays on the couch with his eyes closed. Miyuki uses this chance and almost gives the dense boy a smooch, but he wakes up, causing Miyuki to panic and run away. Tatsuya follows Miyuki and tells her to not worry about it, as he quite enjoys these cliché anime moments as well. Chen informs Zhu that their home country has decided to send them a warship and talks about Lu being captured by the enemies. He then asks Zhu for help, and he replies that Lu will be transferred to Yokosuka Foreigner Penitentiary tomorrow, and it'll be a perfect chance to act and save him. The next morning, Erika asks Tatsuya about the timing of the thesis competition and finds out that it'll begin at 9 a.m. tomorrow. As Leonhardt learns some new flashy moves from Erika, he decides to protect Tatsuya's equipment tomorrow. Erika, along with Mikahiko and Mizuki, also join the cause, considering how the competition gets attacked each year. Meanwhile, Suzune visits Chiaki and tells her that she had the second highest score in the written section of the entrance exam after Tatsuya. She further mentions that Tatsuya is not really good with hardware-related stuff, and if Chiaki uses her anger as motivation, she can achieve great things. Elsewhere, Chiba was able to score a date with the stunning Kaioyuko, but she wants to meet up with him tomorrow as well at the thesis competition to cheer on Tatsuya. The next morning, Kaioyuko visits Tatsuya and informs him that the mobile suit he requested will be delivered soon. On their way back, Miyuki runs into Masaki, and the lover boy reassures her that he'll do everything in his power to protect her. At the same time, Kaioyuko pays the teacher with giant racks and proposes that the two of them keep to their own territory. After Kaioyuko leaves, Ono figures that she wants to keep her relationship with Tatsuya a secret. Following that, she is informed that Lu escaped and was asked to keep an eye on the situation. Hattori also informs Jumanji that Sekimoto was under mind control by the organization, and Mayumi wants him to watch over the venue, to which he agrees and asks both Hattori and Kirihara to put on bulletproof vests, ordering everyone to do the same. Soon after, the presentation of Tatsuya's team begins, and Suzune begins explaining all the research they did to the masses. At the same time, a truck with a robot inside arrives at the venue, and Zhu is informed about the situation as well. After they finish up their presentation, Shinkuru compliments Tatsuya for doing a great job and mentions that he will beat Tatsuya this time, when suddenly an explosion occurs. The terrorist truck barges into the venue, and when Chiba is informed about the situation, he lets Kaioyuko know that he'll be heading to the scene. Tatsuya figures that the sound he heard is of a grenade, and just then, some armed men enter the venue and hold every student at gunpoint. One of the men forces Tatsuya to drop his CAD and shoots bullets at him, but Tatsuya easily manages to stop them with his bare hands and severs his right arm. This motivates the other students to fight back as well, and the armed men are eventually captured. Shinkuru confronts Tatsuya for being able to use a molecular divider when it is supposed to be a secret, and Tatsuya, realizing he doesn't know shit and is dumb as ever, agrees with what he is saying. Due to the battle outside, everyone begins to panic and Mayumi asks Azusa to use her magic to calm everyone down and she agrees. Following that, Mayumi informs everyone about the attack and advises them to head over to the underground passageway as it is the safest place. Meanwhile, Tatsuya stops Leonhardt from blindly jumping into the battle and uses his ability with Miyuki to let her know the location of the enemies so she can freeze their guns, allowing Tatsuya to confront and eliminate them head-on. After taking care of the enemies up front, Suzune takes everyone to the VIP room at the venue and detects the spots where enemies are said to be present. Mikihiko wonders if they should go to the shelter, but Tatsuya wants them to go above ground instead. They then head to erase their thesis data to keep it from being stolen and find Mary along with other students already on it. Jumanji also joins them and mentions that the underground shelter joins with other routes as well and might not be the safest option. Meanwhile, Mary suggests everyone meet up in the waiting room after they are done with their jobs. After meeting up, Mayumi informs everyone that their country's ships are under attack as well and realizes that the enemies are most likely after the Magic Association branch office and want to steal from the main data bank. During their conversation, Tatsuya suddenly pulls out his gun and Mayumi uses her magic to notice a truck accelerating in their direction. He then uses his powers to erase that truck out of existence. Just then, Kayuko appears out of nowhere while outside. Jumanji uses his shield to take care of incoming missiles and meets up with an army officer inside the waiting room. Kazama also arrives and introduces himself to Jumanji, who just appeared with the army officer. Kayuko starts off by explaining the current situation and Kazama then says that they need to mobilize Tatsuya as well. He then asks his friends to keep Tatsuya's identity a secret and Kayuko takes the duty to protect Tatsuya's friends. Before he leaves, Miyuki grabs and kisses Tatsuya's head, which removes the limiter on his powers. On the other hand, Kazama is also doing everything in his power to eliminate the enemies using his magic. Elsewhere, Kirihara also takes care of the enemies in the underground passage along with Hattori to secure the people evacuated. At the same time, the underground passage collapses, but one of the teachers holds it stable so everyone can evacuate. Mayumi and the others are also confronted by armed robots, but Miyuki easily takes care of them using her magic. They then notice the collapsed underground passage, but Mikihiko finds out that everyone seems to be safe. Mayumi decides to call her sugar daddy and asks for some helicopters for evacuation, and Chiba decides to stay behind and protect them until they arrive. Erika tells her older brother that he doesn't have the skills to bag a woman like Kayuko, and he agrees, later giving Erika her sword that he brought along. On the other hand, Tatsuya wears his Power Ranger suit, which is supposedly bulletproof, heat-resistant, and able to fly. With that being said, he flies in the air and notices a drone heading his way, making sure to destroy it before moving forward. Meanwhile, Masaki informs Shinkuru that he will be heading to the Kanto branch of Magic Associating to assist the defense forces guarding it. Shinkuru tries to stop him and eventually tries to tag along, but Misaki refuses and asks him to protect their classmates instead. Mayumi tells Suzune that the helicopters will still take 20 minutes to arrive. Until then, they need to protect the civilians from harm. Following that, they all get in their positions and start to fight all the armed robots heading their way, easily destroying them without sustaining any injury. At the same time, Tatsuya appears in front of Yanagi, who informs him that their enemies are an organization named Great Asian Alliance and that they will be helping to get the evacuees to safety. Eventually, the helicopters arrive and a swarm of magical grasshoppers try to attack them, but luckily are dealt with by Tatsuya. After the helicopters leave, Tatsuya notices an enemy trying to bring them down and erases him out of existence. The enemies then begin using magic to fight the civilians, but just in time. Jumanji arrives and deals with them. On the other hand, Misaki also comes across those magicians and overpowers them to the point that they decide to retreat. Erika and the others are picked up by Mayumi's helicopter and Kanon receives a call from Mayumi as well. But before they can retreat, more enemies attack, and while protecting Mibu, Kirihara gets seriously injured. Just then, Miyuki appears and deals with them along with Tatsuya, who uses his special ability to heal all his injuries and leave after giving Miyuki a hug. Tatsuya and the other Power Ranger then go to fight the enemy unit with tanks, and no matter how many times the enemies shoot down Tatsuya's comrades, he heals them to life each time, frustrating the enemies. Jumanji also takes care of the enemies, and Misaki orders the gates of Chinatown to be opened as enemies run there to get away from him. Soon after, the gates open and Misaki finds Zhu in front of him. Surprisingly, he has caught all of them and says that his men will be cooperating with Misaki. In the helicopter, everyone is confused as to how Tatsuya saved Kirihara's life. Miyuki then informs that he has a power named Regrowth that allows him to make a copy of living or non-living things and bring them to their original state even after they are destroyed. However, this power comes with a huge price to pay, as even if Tatsuya brings back an injured person, he has to feel the pain of their injuries for 1 second. making it 150 times more painful than the original injury. On the other hand, Shen decides to move to Plan B and unleash the beast he has been holding back. Mizuki then notices the presence of the beast as soon as he's unleashed. Turns out, the beast is Lu in a more powerful form. This results in Mary along with Erika and Leonhardt deciding to fight him. During their fight, first Leonhardt and then Erika are punished by Lu, but Mary manages to get the situation under control. Just then, Mayumi converts Miyuki's ice into gas form and freezes Lu's internal organs, bringing him down. Elsewhere, Chen manages to sneak inside the Magic Association and finds Miyuki waiting for him. The old fart shits his pants after seeing her, and Miyuki figures that he is the one who has been tailing her brother for so long. Trying hard not to lose her cool, she ends up freezing him to demise. Tatsuya continues to deal with the enemy tanks and is then informed about the enemy ships heading their way. The squad then goes to the bay where Kyoyuko and Kazama are present. Tatsuya is given a sniper rifle and is ordered by Kazama to use material burst. He agrees, and instead of firing a bullet, Tatsuya locks his powers onto the ship itself and makes the material burst powers destroy it. Back at home, Miyuki receives a call from Maya to check on the situation, and Miyuki reassures her that Tatsuya has been doing his job diligently. She then invites them to visit her mansion and ends the call. Elsewhere, Tatsuya and the others reach the port from where the enemies have gathered up and are trying to flee. Kazama informs everyone about the situation and orders Tatsuya to use Material Burst once again. The series concludes with Tatsuya firing Material Burst and annihilating the entire fleet in a matter of seconds. This was all about our loving siblings. Do you think Tatsuya's friends might treat him differently after finding out about his true identity? Comment magic below if you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.